Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining this real estate expert learning session. You hear me? It's okay? Fine? Thank you. So my name is Annick Villeneuve. I am the global real estate leader in Schneider Electric. I joined the company 5 years ago after 20 years in the IT industry, always taking care about customer and listen customer needs. Real estate is a fantastic sector, and I'm sure that everybody imagine the massive opportunity we will have together to address. Every day, I'm interacting with customer, with my colleagues, solution architect, R&D, business VP, and we talked about the real estate challenges. How we are able to provide you the right solution. How to increase the value of your building, existing one and the new one. How to be sure that our solution will help you to create a better human workspace experience. How to be sure that in the next 3-5 years, you will be able to integrate new technology which doesn't exist today. It's our job, it's our mission with you to find the solution. Everybody agreed that collecting the data is key. How to convince you, everybody, that through the Schneider EcoStruxure IoT platform, the open platform, this digital service platform, we are able to help you to unlock the value of the data, to help you to define new services, new business, but also to help you to deliver the current services, but in a different way. More proactive, more predictive way. So today, during this session, we will not answer all these questions. We have a booth dedicated with some solution already available, and we are pleased to host you after. But there is one thing we need to agree together is digitalization is everywhere. So I would like to welcome Cormac Crossan, our business developer in the real estate. Over the past 3 years, he works on the different smart building projects. And today and currently, he helps our real estate clients to navigate on the digitalization revolution. So welcome to Cormac, and please enjoy the session, and I will be available after to discuss and to follow the discussion. Thank you so much.
There's no sound. How is everybody? Good? Excellent. Okay, so we've had a great session this morning with Jean-Pascal, and we're delighted to give you some follow-up to that with this expert learning session on EcoStruxure for real estate. Thanks, Annick, for the introduction. So let me tell you how this is going to play out. I'm going to give you some quick background to today's discussion, and then I'm going to invite our expert panelists up here to have a chat about it. I really want this is difficult given the environment we're in, but I would love this to be a conversation. This is not about us, this is about all of you, right? So if you have questions, you're going to have time to ask them later on. So, very quickly, some background to the discussion today. We at Schneider are very, very interested in the real estate sector. We study it very carefully. We like to observe the trends and understand how the trends are changing the market. Typically, when we workshop with some of our major customers in the space, we talk about all of these trends here. I'm just going to highlight maybe one of them. Maybe the smart building technologies. So I think we can all agree that, as Annick mentioned, digital is driving a lot of change across multiple sectors, including real estate. And today's topic really is going to be around digital disruption. I'm going to give you an example of how, just one very concrete example of how digital can disrupt real estate from our perspective. Has everybody here, everyone knows there's something in a building called a lighting control system? I assume you do. So when you walk into a room, you typically have a PIR sensor sitting in the ceiling. Okay, so the PIR sensor tells the lighting control system to turn off when there's no one in the room. Okay, I want you to think about that piece of information, right? That's some digital information stuck in a siloed system. Well, in our latest smart buildings, we're taking that piece of information and we're exposing it to multiple other users. So everybody in the building can see if a space is available at a given time. And suddenly the value that that single piece of data has is increased exponentially. And why is this disruptive? Well, because it's breaking down silos and it's allowing us to share data across an ecosystem to create business value. It's just food for thought, right? What do we do at Schneider in the face of all of these, trends? We develop solutions that help real estate professionals create sustainable facilities. We work on operational flexibility. We'll talk about that later on at the real estate booth if you want to pop over. And we're also trying to drive enhanced human experiences in these buildings. This is a huge issue in real estate at the moment. I don't know if you'd agree with this. My perception of real estate at the moment is that we're in a war. There's a war between virtual real estate and real estate. I can order something online rather than going to a mall. I can work from home rather than going to the office. I can virtually visit any building almost in the world on YouTube without going to it. So why leave my house, right? So the enhanced human experience is a big piece in all of this. How do we create destinations, etc.? So we have an absolutely amazing group of guests here to speak today. And I'm going to introduce them just one by one. So our first guest is from Swire Properties, one of the largest property companies in Hong Kong. We work with Swire to create highly sustainable facilities across our portfolio. And our guest is in charge of technical services and sustainable development for the whole of Swire. He's a very distinguished individual. He's had a long, illustrious career spanning Europe. He's worked in UK for 6 years. He is a Manchester United fan, which I am too. So that was an immediate plus. And I want to just tell you one thing about him. When we talk about innovation in Schneider, we have this hashtag that you're going to see everywhere. It's what's your bold idea, right? So we believe that it's really important that you guys, everyone, shares their bold ideas. So our speaker has a bold idea, which is to convert big data collected from buildings into meaningful analytics to enable machine learning for the intelligent optimization of system operations. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Raymond Yao. Thanks, Raymond.
Thank you.
Please grab a seat.
Thank you.
So our second speaker is from Cushman Wakefield. So with Cushman together, we serve some of the largest corporate occupiers across the region. Our speaker has led teams in some of the largest headquarter projects in Asia, including Singapore Standard Chartered Bank, HSBC, DBS, to name but a few. And he's currently working on over 500 projects, capital projects across the region. Interesting fact about our next guest, he has adopted an elephant in Africa. So if there's an elephant in the room in this discussion, he'll be happy to address it. His bold idea is to promote smart building management and data as key to efficiency, savings and workplace optimization. Please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Andrew Carmichael. Welcome, Andrew. Our last speaker is from Ascendis Singbridge, who are one of the biggest property companies in Singapore. Together with Schneider, work to create sustainable, state-of-the-art real estate assets. Our speaker oversees and drives Ascendis Singbridge's business to consumer marketing strategies, and he's a very well-traveled individual. So he is definitely the globe-trotter of the group. He's worked in China, Hong Kong, Japan, the UK, France, Singapore and Thailand. And he also lectures on innovation and leadership in Asia. His bold idea is to build communities and tribes into the real estate space. Please welcome Mr. Yita Chang. Thank you. Okay, so while you guys are getting settled into your chairs, let's do a quick sanity check. Can everybody hear me okay? Just nod, because I can't hear you. Okay. And I hope you can understand my horrible Irish accent. Okay, that's a yes too. Quickly, I have 3 questions for these gentlemen, just to get ourselves warmed up. As I said to you at the outset, really want this to be a conversation. It's about you. Okay. So I'm going to ask my questions, and once I'm done, we have, let me see, where's Vanessa? Vanessa? There you go, there's Vanessa, thank you. So Vanessa has a mic, and she'll walk around to all of you and just put up a hand and you can ask a question later on. Okay. So, let's get cracking. Raymond.
Yep.
If you agree, I'd like to start with you. It's clear, I think we're in an age of seismic changes in the real estate industry, catalyzed by demographic change and the availability of a host of new technologies. I know you have a broad range of experience in digital shifts in the real estate sectors. Can you talk us through some of the projects you're working on right now, maybe around energy management or other aspects?
Thanks, comment. Hi, everybody. Maybe I'd like to give us a little bit background of the firm I'm working for and my role, because I take up this position just less than 3 years ago. Before that, 20 odd years as a design consultant, design buildings across the globe. So my very first task were to revamp the sustainable development strategy for the corporate. So as part of it, we developed a new strategy called SD 2030. In other words, is that we're aiming to excel ourselves in all kinds of performances and measure by the year 2030. And with which, we are not only focusing on the environmental sustainability aspect, but in fact, it's a whole aspect of sustainability. We started reviewing ourselves, how did we perform as a corporate in the past? We look at those in the past focusing on energy saving or environmental sustainability were in fact those colleagues working in my department. So it has no relationship to the rest of the firm. That's maybe 90% of the workforce, And so this new revamped strategy is there to basically embrace every single person within the corporate to find the role to play in this sustainability development. And so this is how we work. So we worked out a sort of a vision statement put forward by the chief executive and developed pillars, focuses on places. We're developers. So we are there to make exciting placemaking or placekeeping. So it's across our portfolios in the States, in mainland China, in Hong Kong, and last but not least, next year we will have our first portfolio to be completed in Singapore and later on in Jakarta. So slightly moving into the Southeast Asia. So this new strategy on the environmental sustainability aspect, alongside with economic sustainability, peoples, and partners, all work closely together to achieve this target. And this become a driver in our overall building sustainability. And after 2.5 years implementation, I would say every single colleagues within the firm have a role to play, and they know exactly why, as a leasing or marketing people, will play in this whole game. So now I'm here just to share about some aspect in this, and also focusing on what the technology drive is driving the firm going forward. So with this in mind, I basically get everybody in the firm buy into some kinds of revamped SD strategy that make my life much more easy to get things implemented. That's very important because a human is always the most difficult part to get buy-in if you have a great plan, despite you have a great objective to achieve. So, and the firm over the years, I think at least for a decade or so, have been collecting energy data from all our portfolios. And through LAN network, not wireless. In those years, it's primarily LAN connecting. We install smart meters or energy meters. Basically, I would like to say over 90%, or in some portfolio, 95% of energy or power being spent, we know exactly where it was spent.
Okay.
So we got this energy meter installed basically in all our portfolio. We were able to understand how energy is being spent and intervene it to improve operation efficiency. But that's not good enough, because when our portfolio get expanded, we started to have portfolio in Miami City 2 years ago, and we keep on building our portfolios. And now we come to a situation that I set out high-level target, and now recently trying to in line with the Paris Agreement in form of science-based target. But how I can convey this high-level target down to the operation level for them to understand and play part of it, that's the most difficult game.
Okay, so what you're saying is that digital has been an important part in your sustainable development journey. Okay,
Yeah.
so at this stage, let's get, if we can pass the mic along to Yita. So Yita, you've a really interesting role in Ascendus, and it was very interesting speaking to you before this event. I'd like to, echoing what Raymond has said, Raymond's always based in Hong Kong, can you tell us how you're using digital to enhance the human experience in real estate, how you're navigating this today?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, good. So my background is a bit different from most real estate people. I started my career in consumer goods, and I ran an innovation consultancy, and then I sort of retired and came back to work with Ascendus Singbridge. And the reason why I came on board was because we saw that a fundamental shift was happening in how people live and work. So rather than seeing how digitalization impacts us, the question is, how are we changing ourselves and how are we using digitalization to enhance the way we live and work? So to make this real, a good example is, let's say 30, 40 years ago, if you think back, how people used to work was, you have a boss who's got all the information. He's worked there, he's in the industry, he knows everything, and he comes to work, and then you build an office around that person, right? So your real estate is generally built around people who know things. Today, everything you need to know is found here. So you don't have to be near the boss. In fact, the boss doesn't have that much knowledge anymore. You might know more stuff depending on how connected and networked you are. So the shift in the workplace has gone from something where you want to surround yourself to get knowledge to a place where you want to network. And if you look at our old properties in Singapore, we have a famous property called Science Park 1. It was built in the 80s to work around R&D groups that work in isolation. So you get a few very smart scientists, they hang out in small spaces and they come up with the future. Now it doesn't work anymore. Now everybody wants to be near each other, so they learn from each other. So we've started working on something called tribalization. We identify tribes. It could be a blockchain tribe, it could be sustainable growth tribes, it could be a corporate tribe like Johnson & Johnson or Dyson, and we put them all together so they all mix and match and learn from each other. One more point before I pass the mic back. Usually, if you look at your tribes, around 5 to 10% of the people actually have energy to interact with, curious enough to reach out to look at things. 80-90% of the people working in your company or most companies, heads down, doing their work. So what's shifted is that how do you get that 5-10% to get them interested and give them the occasions and events where they can meet other people from different tribes so they can grow and they're curious. The war for talent is a big issue, and to keep people involved and the millennials curious,
engaged, maybe, yeah.
You really have to actually get them engaged by building these opportunities for them to network.
Yeah, okay, that's very interesting. And I think it ties in very well to this idea of ecosystem that we talk about so much, but we'll talk about that later on. That's excellent, Ita. If you can hand the mic to Andrew. Andrew, let's hear from you. Andrew, you have a lot of exposure to various markets in Asia Pacific through your role in Cushman. Interested to see, so you work a lot with corporate occupiers. Is this what Ita has said, Raymond? Are you hearing similar things from your own professional experience?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, as you said in the introduction, I put some context around this in that I'm responsible for, on any given day, around about 500 projects across the region. and they are with multinational, multi-located organizations. And they are absolutely demanding smart buildings and smart workplaces. That they want that for the background. And I say the background because the foreground that they're focusing on is driving their own business. And the war, you mentioned war earlier, the war for them is around talent, attracting talent and retaining their talent. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned about measuring things 30 years ago. When I first started my career, I was in Berkeley Square in London, and somebody would come and see me and say, "Hey, Andrew, I've got a problem. I've got to move 500 people. Can you help?" And you'd kind of look at your watch. It's nearly lunchtime, and you say, "Oh, well, you know what? Let's chat about it over lunch." There was no workplace strategy. There was really amateurs, and the only thing that we could really measure was the cost. So the DNA of workplace strategy really goes back to a guy, a British architect called Frank Duffy, and he took an approach of measuring things from the inside out. So really designing offices inside out, and they started mapping. His company was DGW. They started mapping and measuring things. So that was fantastic. So now that you're measuring things, you can make it more efficient. So the drivers then were are really around about driving down operational costs. Then it moved on. Technology moved on in particular, and you moved from quite static work into mobile work. So now the if I can call them the snake oil salespeople that were workplace strategists had to reinvent themselves. So now, through all of this mapping, they're looking at behaviors. Okay, so now they become behavior experts. What organizations are doing today, they're giving you that information. If you go to Schneider Electric's headquarters here in Kelang in Singapore, there's 3,000 sensors measuring and fine-tuning everything that goes on in that building for the user experience. They don't need smart people to come in and advise them. They're giving the designers the information. I work with Microsoft around the region as a partner of yours. It's a key client of mine. I'm currently working on 2 projects, one in Tokyo, one in Singapore. Both headquarters, 3,000 people and 1,200 people. They measure 2 things in their workplace. They track the laptop that you have and your mobile device. You might be without one of them, but it's unlikely you're going to be without 2. So it tracks you when you tap in, tracks all your movements, and when you tap out, it stops. So it gets around the privacy issues. So that's really compelling. If you combine that with the smart building technology for the structure of the building and what they're mapping inside, all they want the designers to do is then focus on the experience. Why? Because they're in a war for talent, and that experience needs to be seamless, needs to be frictionless, it needs to be about good air quality, good daylight, workplace settings which I can personalize and make a choice on. So there are the key drivers that I'm hearing from the corporate clients.
Got it.
They need the background work so that they can concentrate on the foreground.
And it's all about productivity. That's the magic word. Yeah. Okay, excellent, Andrew. Thank you. Raymond, going to change topic slightly. Let's grab a crystal ball. We're looking forward 3-5 years time. What's digital disruption look like for you? So today it's SD. Can you see it moving into other areas? What's the next project for you?
Starting this digitalization in a big way. Considering the fact that we need to understand precisely how the operation taking place. So this cloud-based across all our portfolios in the 10 centers in all our interests. We intervene then, data push up to a cloud, and we are using EcoStruxure energy advisor to help us to really analyze, intervene those data to come up with useful information. At the same time, we are engaging specialist researchers to look at how to interpret some of this into machine learning. So the result of this is to enable us to achieve much more system optimization. One thing we have been doing is we find engaging design consultants early on to help us design new buildings. Quite often, the standard design being given did not take into account of the operation of the system in relation to the reality. So what we are currently doing is we provide them freely some of our operational data, the energy side, operational chillers and everything. So that we also teach them how we manage our portfolios so they can build into the overall estimation, designing a much more optimized system for us. So we're sharing with our designer upstream. And downstream, this data enable us to give our front-end facility management understanding the simple rule of thumb in managing systems.
Okay.
So we intervene at the cloud level across and then share this information within our portfolio. So
across
so this
silos, yeah.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
So
I think
data,
this is a major disruption to our business because our frontline people not get used to this sort of system, and they don't have the time dealing with this high level. What is AI? What is machine learning? But from our experience, it's a tremendous opportunity investing in it. And so the next way going forward is we're going to test on this, which is have first phase of success already. We'll move on to a big way on the smart facility management.
Okay.
But that will be even a greater way, but much more demanding. But the firm is conservative in a way that we want to test things out one step at a time, proven that is providing tremendous value to the business rather than just all the way going to do it, because it's quite risky because the investment and also the human disruption is quite extensive that way.
Okay, very good. Yita, I'm going to pass it along to you. Similar question, Yita. So, first question we heard about the tribal approach, how you see, the millennials interpreting real estate today. How about 3 to 5 years time? Similar.
Okay, so what I think will happen in the next 3 to 5 years is a big shift in how people look for in the places they work. So under my portfolio, for example, is our co-working spaces. So we're building 5, 6 co-working spaces, and we're building it ourselves because we want to actually track to see how people use space, what they want, what's new. And a lot of the disruption that's coming to the industry is because it's come in through WeWork, an outsider who builds things differently, sees the world differently. And one of the challenges of real estate that we find is that we tend to build things that we are familiar with, that we tend to know will work. So we don't take too many risks because it takes so many years to get something built and you're not sure how to experiment. So co-working, for example, or the whole shared economy is coming into all parts of our lives, right? It's going to go into electric cars, we're going to share cars, we're going to share. We don't actually need that much in the future. So when we do co-working, it's a very good, I guess, a very close microscopic opportunity for us to see how things change. I'll give you an example. Most offices, like the traditional office I work in today, is set up through cubicles. We measure air quality, we measure noise, we measure light, we measure temperature. So all the sensors are there because that's how it's all been traditionally measured. And then the question is, how do you put them all together and what can you learn from them? But we're still building off things which are standard. And when you start looking at how people work and live in different places and in a co-working space, you realize those measures are no longer standard, they're disruptive. So we now start measuring things in new spaces. It's not for everyone, but it gives us a good idea of how things are evolving, and it gives us a head start in designing the spaces for the future.
Excellent. Okay. Very interesting. Andrew, similar, forward-looking, right? So you told us about what's happening today. Lots of interesting stuff. How about 3 to 5 years' time?
Well, my first thought is I should come and visit you because we have a measurement and a metric at Cushman & Wakefield that we call experience per square foot. And so we run that globally, and we get some great data out of organizations like LinkedIn, for example, and we compare their offices around the world of what the users are talking about in terms of the experience that they have. So that's kind of interesting. I'll catch up with you afterwards. Okay, I think certainly, and we heard a lot about this in the opening session this morning, the opportunity certainly is in Asia Pacific. I think it's exciting, and the reason I say that is that the multinationals that we're dealing with tend to be coming out of Europe or North America, right? So you've got this clash of seas. You've got this wave of organizations coming over from the West, put organizations like Huawei and so on going the other way aside for 1 second, but you have this wave of multinationals coming into Asia Pacific, and you're mixing that with a young workforce which is highly tech savvy, very digital and very fickle. So if they can't do, or we can't do, in a workplace what we can do easily in our own personal lives, you make a decision, I'm not going to work there. Yeah. You know, I don't like the experience for a number of reasons, and it's frustrating. You want the whole building to be frictionless, and that's what I think the opportunity is going forward.
Okay, very interesting. I'm conscious of time. I was going to ask 3 questions, but I'm conscious of time. I think I'd like to open it up for your questions now. So, Vanessa, where are you? Yeah. Let's take a few. Vanessa, hands up, anybody who wants to ask a question? Let's see. Yes, sir.
From Deutsche. What's your view on cybersecurity and the Internet of Things in buildings?
Okay, so cybersecurity in buildings. Comment. Raymond, your favorite topic?
Yeah. I think this is a very crucial question, and also a challenge facing the big way of digitization. And we have, as a corporate, we just established our cybersecurity policy in view of digitization. And so in the current system, we are only allowing one-way traffic, because we're testing the implication, how would, if we allowed the cloud-based digitalization to be able to monitor and really to take control of our local system, that without a full knowledge about the risk, there's a tremendous problem there. So the way we started off is that we are only using this cloud to enable data analytics for optimization, and those knowledge will feed it back to individual centers, not through the cloud system. So we are building up the task force actually to look into it.
So there's a human element, always looking at the data, but there's no control.
But however, if we cannot resolve this problem of feeding back information to really control the BMS in the best way we want, we never will make it fully efficient, right? So the firm is going to look into that very closely, because our finance people or CRM people would be very much concerned how this system, if you let a loophole here, then it could potentially escalate to other types of problems. So that's why when I first arrived yesterday, I sneaked my way into the cybersecurity conference taking place in Suntec Center. I met with a lot of cybersecurity experts there. And hopefully they will come with a more comprehensive solution for us in line with the EcoStruxure and so on. I'm not saying I'm not believing in your expert, but I'm trying to get also more information how to really address this very important area.
Raymond, we have a really good session tomorrow. EcoStruxure, cybersecurity, please come along. It'll be even better than this one, if that's possible. Let's get another. Can we get another question? Unless you want to talk about.
I just got a view on that for a second, because I think one of the challenges, put the technicals to one side. The challenges that you have with countries, organizations, or buildings is they're in different swim lanes. So what I mean by that, if you think about Olympic swimmers, the best ones go in lanes 4 and 5, right? They're in the middle, and they're the best swimmers. So you have countries and organizations and buildings that are in lane 4 and 5. In Asia Pacific, you've got a lot of variety. So you have other people that are in the outer lanes, and you have some countries and organizations that are not even in the swimming pool. So, how do you deal with that in terms of driving consistency across your buildings?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and I think, maybe a vacuum in terms of some standards, the convergence of IT and OT. Excellent question. Thank you. Next question. Gentleman over there. Thanks, Vanessa.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
We can hear you. Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to ask you how the IoT can affect the changes in the contractual cycle of the building, especially the contractual nature of the normal construction. The question I expect answer from Andrew.
Okay.
Okay.
How does the IoT component, is that what you're saying, affect the contractual side?
I'm just going to jump in. When you
Yeah.
say he's got the mic's gone. So when you say the contractual, you mean between the different silos, like the ecosystem, general contractors, main contractors,
Correct.
consultants, etc. How do you navigate that?
What I was asking is that you should have the IBMS or ELV systems decision taken at the early stage of the project,
Okay.
rather than dividing it into a subcontractor, because that is a normal practice of the normal buildings.
Yeah.
So if you give it to a lower level, you are not able to implement the intention of the main
All right.
data process.
So I see this as basically, kind of a value engineering question. You have a vision for a building, and when it gets down through procurement and prescription specification, it can sometimes change.
Okay, well, I think it's about an ecosystem of stakeholders. So if the organization is driving a certain strategy, they will look for partners at a macro level. It might be the developer of the building, for example. We're doing a big Capgemini was mentioned this morning as a big project for us in Hyderabad at the moment. The stakeholders are engaged early. So the building developer, they can drive the solutions that the client is looking for. And the client is looking for those solutions because they really want to keep their employees and they want to be efficient, they want to drive their costs down, and the experience is becoming higher up the agenda now. So if you go drill down into the actual projects, you need to have stakeholders in that ecosystem that are delivering the project that are buying into it as well. So you get them in earlier. We talk about the design of buildings, get the smart people around the table early and take them on a journey. You don't just leave it to the procurement department at the end, because then it's going to just screw everything up. Excuse me.
That's excellent.
Can I also respond
sure,
quickly on that?
Okay.
I think this is absolutely the key to ensuring a successful delivery of a IoT buildings for its benefit. It also depends on where the building is going to be built. In China, in Hong Kong, in other Western world economy, is entirely different. You have also looked at the present contractual arrangement. In some location, it may be arranged in much more silo way. So you need to break through this. The main driver is a development. What do we want to achieve at the end of the day? So he need to really work out the workflows, including splitting into work packages, ensuring the interfaces between work packages and so on.
Yeah.
If you just leave it to designers or consultants who might simply treat it as a usual way, then the problem will come. So I think we come across a lot of this sort of difficulties.
Okay. No, you can hold on to that, but we'll flip it along. Conscious of time here. Do we have one last question from the audience, maybe? Yep, sir, over there. Yep, Vanessa, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
My name is Jean Panek. I'm from JLL.
Oh, hi, John.
Hi. I have rather comment than question. Okay. I believe digitalization, everybody understands, is needed in this room. But in fact, it started, but it is just at the beginning. Because if you look for big campus systems or big buildings, okay, where is the problem of digitalization? For people who are in project management and who are delivering this type of buildings, they know that the biggest problem is wiring, is copper. As long as we are not going to the sensors, wireless sensors, digitalization will not yet start. That is beginning of the technology. We are not yet there, okay? When you are finishing building, the cost of copper, of bus bars is tremendous, okay? sometimes you can use for weak currents cables. Sometimes you can use for power small cables. For big power, you cannot use anything. You have to keep a copper in the building. So that is first observation. We can talk about...
This is a bit of a long question, Jean. So
Yes.
I'm going to have to cut you off, but it's an interesting comment. So digitization, we're at the beginning of the journey, but we need the wireless sensor. But I'm going to have to wrap up. Quick
Okay.
comment from you guys on that, just before we wrap up. I don't even know where the mic is on. You're okay, Ita. I would like to, because Ita hasn't had a lot to say. Ita, do you want to just wrap up maybe with the main challenge you see in this digital journey? You want to take just a minute to do that, and then I'll wrap up.
Sure. So when we talk about how IoT works and everything else, the key question we have really when we start building our new projects and buildings is the speed, especially the different countries work. So when we look at the consumer experience in China, it's actually really different from that in Singapore because security is different, the people who use the premises are different. China moves fast. And so the challenge we have when we have projects in the US and projects in China, projects in India, they all move at different speeds and different requirements. And as a developer, trying to build a uniformed experience for everyone or keeping it so-called cutting edge for everyone is a misnomer. You can't do it. It's just very different depending on where you are. And as you said, we are early on the start. We're at the very start of digitalization. Things are moving very quickly. Some places move faster, some places slower, but more importantly, some places move differently. So what you see happening in the US is actually quite different from what's happening in China, and India is going to take its own path. So we're going to be handling quite a mixed bag of different approaches as we move along.
Okay, fantastic. So we've just got 2.5 minutes left, so I've been told by the crew to wrap up, so I'm going to do that. Let's see. That's the first thing I'd like to say is just before we move on to this is just what my takeaways are from this conversation. Thank you very, very much for your contribution. So, Raymond, what I got from you, moving the sustainability needle using digital. So some very interesting insights on how you're doing that using cloud technologies from us, maybe other providers. You see things moving towards the machine learning, smart FM space. That's very, very interesting. And you talked about silos too. It's very interesting. Love your insights on tribalization, communities, how millennials will perceive buildings moving forward. I like you're mentioning about conservatism in real estate. I think it's a reality. It's very, very relevant in the digitization journey in real estate. So what about risk taking and how do you invest? And as you echoed what Jean said, it's early days, right? So this is a long journey, and we're in for an interesting and maybe bumpy ride in some cases. And Andrew, so you mentioned about workplace demands. Very interesting to get your insights on what corporate occupiers are saying to you, what their expectations are, similar to what Utah said. I love your experience by square foot. I like that. We'll have some of that in Schneider. And about onboarding people early, etc. Oh yeah, and I forgot my most important takeaway. I don't know who said this. Yeah, Utah. You said most people know more than their boss. I don't. I've got some studying to do. So, let's wrap up very quickly. I've got 50 seconds. You guys are going to see a lot of this. Okay, this is what we call our EcoStruxure stack. EcoStruxure for commercial real estate. It's a suite of solutions. I just want to finish with this because it's highly relevant to our overall digital story. I'm not going to talk about connected products. We've been making them for donkey's years, right? Edge control software, it's what we need to configure, monitor, control all this stuff. You'll hear about this till the cows come home. Where it's really at, we're at an innovation summit. So the innovation is happening up here. This is our cloud apps analytics layer. And there's some really, really fantastic, amazing stuff happening with hundreds of thousands of clients across the globe using these. Examples of, I'll just give you a quick statistic. Everyone in this space, I'm assuming you've come to this real estate panel because you're interested in commercial real estate, right? Well, commercial real estate has a huge amount of untapped potential in terms of efficiencies. And untapped potential in efficiencies is about 82% left. So we're at the beginning, when we say we're at the beginning of a journey, we have a long way to go. That 82% is money. And we have many, many clients who are using these software packages some of which can actually automate that money saving. Now, if you have the time, my one call to you, my one request to you is if you come this far, please join us on our real estate booth, which is over there. I'll be there, our whole real estate team will be there, and we'll be very happy to show you some examples of how we're driving digital today into real estate to drive some of these efficiencies. That's me. I'll leave you with my bold idea. Please share your bold ideas on social media, hashtag what's your bold idea. And thank you all, and thank our panelists, and thank you all for listening.